Like the plays we saw, or did we?
If Only is a 85-minute long, very cerebral romance that's also historic. It's about the reunion of two people, very unlikely, a former runaway slave and the nurse who took care of him during the Civil War, and about how they established a connection but never were able to really follow through with it because of their difference in class and race. So Melissa Gilbert is one of the stars of it, and there's an awful lot of talking in it. There's a sort of a, I wouldn't call it a romantic reunion, but maybe a soul connection reunion, where they spend a lot of time sort of talking around each other and using a lot of literature and literary references to sort of allude to their love for each other. So it's the kind of show where you have to kind of really pay attention and you have to be very patient because it is extremely talky. Personally, that appealed to me, and as did the historical element and the hidden sexual tension.
Ah, well, I wish I could agree with you. To me, there was no chemistry between Anne and Samuel at all. I found their relationship confusing. How did Lincoln end up introducing them if she met him as a patient while she was a nurse? I gather he was a valet for Lincoln, but what was her connection other than a chance meeting with Lincoln at some hotel she favored? If you like your plays verbose with no action, then you might enjoy this as much as Leslie. I prefer my plays to have more action than moving furniture. Also, with all the talking, they really didn't say anything. I did enjoy Melissa Gilbert's stage presence. She has a very melodious speaking voice that was a pleasure to listen to, even if the words coming out didn't thrill me. Mark Kenneth Schmaltz as Samuel was too stodgy to seem like a jilted lover, and her husband in the small role seemed kindly, yet why was she scared of him, and his reaction to his ruined butterfly collection. And the little girl Corinne Tetlow, who I'd seen in Traveling Lady, is adorable, and she inexplicably played a silent, traumatized orphan who did nothing to advance or add to the plot. So answer those questions,
I
Leslie.
will. Melissa Gilbert's character, adopted this young, abandoned, well, her parents were killed. She was so desperate to give and take and receive real love, she adopted this orphan, and that filled a hole in her heart. Her husband, I agree, seemed kindly, but he was just the typical kind of Edwardian husband who would pat his wife on the head and say, now, dear, yes, you play with your friends, you could have your visitor, but not even expecting that she would have had any past before him or any friends that he didn't approve of. So my feeling is she married him for comfort and convenience. She did not love him. She always remembered this former runaway slave, which was a love that never could be.
But I felt the no chemistry between them. And also, tell me about the whole Lincoln introduction thing, because I didn't understand that whole Lincoln connection was confusing to me.
That is a good point. She had a one-off conversation with Lincoln in the lobby of this hotel.
So how did he end up introducing them?
That's a great question. That is a little bit confusing.
And why were they both so obsessed with Lincoln?
Oh, I think they both, for different reasons, found him to be honorable and a man of integrity.
Well,
he was their hero.
Well, I don't know. I was very disappointed, so I'm giving it a mix.
Well, you know what? That's why they make chocolate, and that's why they make vanilla. And I'm giving it a happy face.
The award-winning Black Orchid Theater Company is presenting Agamemnon, which is the first part of the Oresteia trilogy. And it's, I think, the most ambitious production they've done. It's the story of the returning general from the Trojan War and his wife, who's still angry at him for slaughtering their daughter, gets her revenge. And we have from our group, and one of the cast members, Leslie, who plays Cassandra, the slave that Agamemnon brings back. And I just want to congratulate you all. I thought it was a beautiful job.
Thank you. It was very ambitious, and we feel really pleased with the end result. And so I can tell you, and you already know this, that it's the first part of the trilogy, the Oresteia trilogy. We did the first part at the beginning of September. The Libation Bearers, we're going to perform the first weekend of October for 3 performances, and then the third part, which is the Furies, will be the first weekend in November. So it'll be a full trilogy, and, funnily enough, we said to our director, we're not so sure this idea is going to go over.
Wow.
And apparently it did, and you saw it and you gave it a review. So
yeah, I love this production. I generally like this company. I think first of all, there are people. And
Claudia Terry.
yes, Claudia Terry
as well, and
Kristen.
Kristen Hardwick
does the stage managing.
That's
usually.
right. And Carl Williams was not in this, but he's often in a lot of the productions.
So, but they do ambitious work. This is the most ambitious. And it's so much better than like Broadway productions of it I saw. It finally hit home about the tragedy of the House of Atreus is about slaughtering children. And how that, is never good for a family.
No. And I'm glad you picked that up. Yes. Thank you.
So I'm looking forward to the other sections where we'll meet Electra and Orestes and we'll, see how this family ends up.
And we're looking forward to seeing your...
Yes, I'm going to be a Fury in part 3.
Okay.
Yes.
New York is undergoing a revival of interest in Marlene Dietrich and Dietrich-related material. Not always for the better. Dietrich Rides Again, just presented by Just More Theater, booked by Oliver Conant and Justina Kostek, directed by Mr. Conant and starring Ms. Kostek. She tries to portray Marlene from her violin prodigy days through her years working with Max Reinhardt and her film career and her help to the Allied effort in World War II and later cabaret career. This is really a story worth telling, and the Dietrich songs are wonderful, but Miss Kostek is just not up to the task. She can't sing, she can't act or dance, and she looks nothing like Dietrich. She has no charisma, no charm or sex appeal. I think Groucho Marx pretending to be Dietrich would have been better, and she looks a little bit more like him. So unfortunately, even though it has some of the greatest songs, Lili Marlena, Hot Voodoo, The Boys in the Back Room, I would say run away from this disaster. I'm giving it an unhappy face minus. We don't get to meet Marlene, but we do hear her famous song, Lili Marlene, in Lili Marlene. Book, music, and lyrics by Michael Anton, directed and choreographed by Mark Blowers. Music direction and arrangements by Rocco Vitacco, and it stars Amy London as Rosie Penn, who's the young cabaret singer who actually got to sing this song on the radio and became the voice that Germany knew for Lili Marlene. We find out that she's of Jewish origin, was an orphan, and that the man who loved her is a count who was trying to help German scientists and artists escape from Germany. Really interesting story, but terrible book and not very good songs, except of course for Lili Marlena. So these performers, especially Ms. London, deserve much better, and the story deserves better telling. But at least this is not a total disaster that I'm furious at. So this gets mixed faces, maybe a minus.
Mark and I went to 5090 59th Street to see Charolais from Fish Amble Company in Dublin. And it was written and performed by Nonie Stapleton and directed and developed by this impossible Irish name. I'm sorry, I'm going to mangle it. Barbara Ní Keown. It almost sounds Welsh. But anyway, this was a wonderful one-person show, which was surprising because I'm not fond of one-person shows. But the way she characterized all the people, she's this big, stout townie who's in love with this big stout country boy, and he makes her feel nice and small and delicate, but this guy Jimmy that she's in love with has this horrific mother, a mother of all mothers, and she wants her dead. And then Jimmy, his affections are torn between his mother and this cow, and she wants the cow dead, and she wants all the attention to herself because she's pregnant and hormonal.
And again, Nonie Stapleton is quite a find. She's a wonderful actress. She's totally convincing as the town girl, and she makes herself seem bigger and kind of sexier as the cow. And she wrote this, and it's really, really, really well written. So I hope to see a lot more of her. And again, it's like you normally don't think you would care that much about a story between conflict between a woman and a cow, but here you really do care for each of them, and I don't want to say what happens, but they both get their own.
Yeah, but and also I wanted, because when I was reading like the press release and reading up about it, I got very confused. I thought this was going to be like the goat or Who is Sylvia or like the Gene Wilder, everything you always wanted about sex, with the sex with the sheep. I thought this was like, having a romance with a farm animal, but it's not. It has nothing to do with that. And I love, once the cow makes an appearance, I mean, this French thing, she is hysterical. Oh.
Sexier than Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
I mean, but definitely happy face.
And,
this was
yeah,
quite
and
charming.
much more on Facebook. In Matt Cox's Puffs with music by Brian Hose, a ragtag group of wizard students tried valiantly to achieve third place, all under the shadow of that annoying you-know-who. Friendships are forged and tested, parents disillusion their proud progeny, mediocrity triumphs over that can-do, never-quit spirit. I never got into the Harry Potter stories and movies despite having a son who was constantly compared to Harry. I think it was the glasses. So I didn't get all the references, and some of the accents prevented me from hearing some of the lines, but it was still mildly entertaining. It certainly tried valiantly to encompass the entire Potter experience in under 2 hours, which maybe was a tad too ambitious. The ensemble put their heart into it, just as their characters did, in trying to escape the constant ridicules of Puff's face as being low on point. My friend who accompanied me and was familiar with Potter had mixed feelings about the show. However, the young audience seemed very enthusiastic and were enjoying themselves thoroughly. I just wish that I had been able to as well. So I'm giving it a mix, but the audience is giving it a major happy face.
Recently at Here I saw Heartless Bastard, written by Jim Shankman, directed by Craig J. George, a story about a man who gets a heart transplant and it transforms his personality a bit. I thought it was okay, but I really liked one actress in it, Barbara Wengard, who plays the wife of the heart donor and was kind of a tough broad, but really well performed. And meanwhile, Eva you about, I give it a mixed review. Eva will tell you about other things at Here that are coming up or performed now.
Yeah, Here is starting its season again, and there's a couple of really good puppet shows coming up. There's a solo puppet show called Flatiron Hex, and the Joshua Show is his old-fashioned humor with, he's the ambassador of joy. And then there's Stairway to Stardom, which is a passionate story about the questionably talented. So we love going to Here, so I just want to let you know, time to go back there.
Again, 6th Avenue near Spring Street, and they have a great bar, they have 2 theaters, it's a wonderful place and a gallery, great destination.
And we've got really, really devastating news in high drama. We're all very upset right now because our very own Barry Liebmann died of liver cancer on September 1st after being sick for a while. And he thought it was anemia. He had no energy and he didn't know what it was. And it turns out it was liver cancer and it was horrible. So, he was an integral part of high drama. Just the other day, I was doing a press conference for Desperate Measures, which we'll talk about on our next show, and they say, "Where was your better half?" I mean, me and Barry, we were always everywhere, and we loved free food. We go to that Irish thing. That was like one of our favorite things to do.
Yeah, and Barry was just like one of the funniest guys I've ever met, and one of the brightest, and it's kind of sad that he's just not around in our world anymore because he really did make it a better place. And Eva has known him forever, so it's really like losing a right arm or something.
I know, it's like, but Alfie's known him all his life. In fact, once Alfie and Barry went and saw, I think, a children's version of On the Town together. I mean, he loved, we had the same taste in shows. We loved comedies and everything, but his favorites were Marx Brothers, the Beatles, and he loved Dean Martin, too.
Okay.
And
share that love.
So, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the Barry, there's so many Barry reviews. So I'm going to go put a whole compilation of Barry reviews so you can revisit Barry. But he left so many friends behind. I mean, he was involved with so many different, like, aspects. It's incredible. And he wanted a funny funeral, and he wanted to fly funny, and we did that for him.
And just a word of advice, make sure your doctor checks your liver.
Yeah.
So, learn something from this.
Yes, we salute you, Barry.
Antics. They range from a pie eating contest while the rules on table manners are read to us to a synchronized tongue dance. You have to see this one to believe it. The performers really do get their tongues in sync, which is more than I've done many times. Anyway, some of the incidents are, even if somewhat tangentially connected to the Founding Fathers, some are not, but the entire show is connected to the Founding Fathers in one way. The Constitution guarantees us the pursuit of happiness, and this might just help you in your pursuit of happiness, or your pursuit of silliness. Anyway, it has its flaws. He doesn't reveal any of the supposed secrets that we think we're going to find out about. The whole thing with the ghosty attitude or whatever, the jukebox going off, never explained, and yet it's very funny. The characters are very real and very likable. The creepy guy, not so much, but even he is sort of vulnerable. So I enjoyed it all the way through, so despite its flaws, I enjoyed it. Also recreates what he imagines Shakespeare's journey must have been like, going from a barely educated country boy to a great playwright. And together they make a great team. DeVita handles the bard's monologues with great skill and clarity. And the intertwining storylines are hugely entertaining thanks to his marvelous rapport with his audience, his physicality, such as when DeVita turns a chair into a straying sheep, and his witty approach to the material. I can see that this show might even inspire some actors also to become great Shakespearean actors, but either way, it's very entertaining.
And you can find this review on Facebook because we run out of time. It's for Yutaka Okada's Kikki and Grandpa and Baby, which was so beyond atrocious, I allowed both of us to walk out.
Yeah, it sucked on so many levels. I think it may be the worst play I've seen all year, and it's only January. I'm used to comedy improvisation, but not this sort of thing, and it was quite interesting, especially the third piece, which had music by Jason Noble, somebody who'd recently passed away, who had connections with Siti, and it was quite moving. About the bed. It's in a bedroom that looks like it is the ballroom of like the fanciest hotel in Europe or something like that. It does not look like it's in a southern mansion. A lot of times in the first act they're just yelling at each other. I was tuning out, and the murder doesn't even happen until the very end of the first act. There's a big difference between something being ridiculous and something being comical, and this is not comical, although there are some funny lines to it and there are some chuckles to it. It's just dumb. It's not. Moose Murders lives down to its reputation. Louisa Bradshaw is terrific as Marilyn Monroe, Norman Jean Baker, and they do a nice job of moving back and forth the various parts of her life. I thought it was well done. They are played by, actors, the cat and the dog, but the bunny is a puppet, a hand puppet.
It's so cute.
It's the cutest thing.
Every time you see you go, oh.
I think I should mention that even though Charles Busch is writing the script, it is the book, whatever you want to call it. It's not a radical version, or it's not a spoof of a kid's musical. It really is a kid's musical, just very funny.
And I just want to mention the dog, Robert Anthony Jones, the cat, Prescott Seymour, were wonderful. This is delightful. We've only got a couple more weekends to go see this, so please don't miss it.
Take the kid. Also a Fringe encore is Recipe for Success with Michael DiNardi. So what's the recipe? Take one former writer for Stephen Colbert named Peter Grosz. Have him whip up a character that he will perform named Michael DiNardi, a Food Network chef wannabe. Let him come up with weird concoctions such as peanut butter papaya pizza and 30 cheese ziti. Adds on some less than helpful formulas for success such as hold grudges or take everything personally. It's what makes you a person. Sprinkle in some wacky anecdotes like the time he started a riot at a homeless shelter or the time he poisoned Michael Chiklis. And what do you have? A very funny show called Recipe for Success with Michael DiNardi. That's a real treat. And it's being served again, so bon appetit!
Play a certain character.
Yes, you get to play along with this. This is totally silly, outrageous, as you were saying, the men playing objects. It's a lot of fun, and actually you get fed too, so it's quite nice. Lickspittles, Buttonholers, and damn Pernicious go-between, say that 3 times, has a lot going for it. Goofy characters, a terrific cast with excellent comic timing, funny lines, clever rhymes, and even an occasional pratfall. So why was I so bored? Because the one thing it doesn't have is a clear, cogent plot. Joanna Adams' script focuses on a loudmouth, a kiss-ass, and a pimp, the lickspittle, buttonholer, and go-between of the title, who get kicked out of the Danish court and end up in Napoleon's court where they encounter female counterparts of themselves. And it goes on with twists and turns that seem like, you know, it was made up by kids at play. You know, there's a lot. It's a shame because there's a lot going for it here. There are funny moments in it, but it really needs a good dramaturg, I think. Yeah, it's very interesting because we really see the pressures that are put on Muhammad Ali, and he does have this sort of friendship with Stephen Fetchit. Who would have thought that? But it's great because we do see all these things. I mean, he's having trouble with this sinister character, and he's having all these problems. Like he's worried that somebody is going to assassinate him, just as they had done with Malcolm X.
Who was a friend of...
There things get wilder and wilder, and it's all very funny. Joe Dambusky, as the writer who comes up with the scheme, is as marvelous here as he was in another Molnar play that was revived a year ago by the Storm Theater, The President. He has a knack for playing manipulators that are likable enough to make us laugh as he pulls everybody's strings. He's aided by a wonderful cast, and under the sharp direction of Peter Dobbins, this lively farce proves that it's worth reviving and not just a curio from the past.
What? This was such a fun... I'm so glad Barry told me about this theater company.
Storm Theater does marvelous work, and this is just another one. They're terrific. Go check them out. It's terrific, and the acting is wonderful. Tony Danza's perfect for this character because he, on one hand, he exudes sweetness and likability, even though he's playing a character who isn't always very likable.
And his psychic Matthew Saldivar is also he's just hilarious,
This
too.
is just a fun musical. Don't wait till it gets to Broadway. See it now. There was also there was a monologue towards the end that was very interesting. It was about Thomas Watson explaining that, even though he is not the main genius behind the telephone, he was happy to be a part of this, and it just links up with something I was reading I'm reading a book now about the early days of the Beatles, and how many of the people who helped them feel the same way that was in this monologue. I thought it was a very sharp monologue.
7 Degrees of Watson. 6 Degrees of Watson.
It acts. It has a woman who strips down to totally naked and yet pulls streamers out of, well, who knows, it's not out of her sleeve. One of the few shows you can see uptown Manhattan is No Name on Wednesday, February 26th at 7:30. It is at the United Palace Vaudeville House that has been refurbished and revamped and now is a major venue for theater events and movies in the Washington Heights community. This is a comedy variety show that will have people from The Daily Show and NPR. And I've seen past shows, and it's very funny. There's this 12-piece band and a raffle there. And you can see more information on our Facebook page. There's a food fight. There's one of the men ends up with his pants down. No depth at all, which is fine because it is also very, very funny. Both Erin Cronican and Brandon Walker, co-directors, are to be commended for a remarkable ensemble cast, including themselves. With energy, drive, and purpose, no actor can be singled out. It is their honest portrayals as both the actors of the company and the various townspeople that gain the audience's full attention. Definitely try to make this production playing until June 29th. Happy face.
Welcome to our 600th show! And our next show, 601, will be on October 4th. And 4th, everybody! Yay!
I recently got to see at Carnegie Hall the New York Pops, All You Need Is Love, the songs of the Beatles. Wonderful, absolute wonderful treat for the ears. It was even better than I expected, and I expected a hell of a lot.
December 21st, they're doing It's a Wonderful Life Christmas party where you get sides and everyone gets to participate and be in It's a Wonderful Life.
I look forward to it every year.
We both do, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, because you never know which part. I think one year you played Violet one year.
Right, yes.
One year she got to play Violet.
It's great. You can play man, woman,
child, Azusa.
It's about spiritual matters, but it's not pushing religion. It's more about man's human being's relationship with God.
In The Rape of the Sabine Women by Grace B. Mathias, Michael Yates Crowley has done the nearly impossible. He's written a very funny and thoughtful play about rape and the culture that ignites it. Grace is a 15-year-old girl who develops a friendship with the high school football star, and things go wrong. Nobody, her guidance counselor, her mom, her lawyer, nobody's really able to help her, but the painting of The Rape of the Sabine Women gives her inspiration. You really have to see this to believe it. It's a wonderful play with a wonderful cast, and I'm giving it very much a happy face.
And I am too, and my review will be on the Facebook page along with more of Mark's.
These are just a few of the reviews that Barry did. And throughout the year, we're going to throw in some more because we just ran out of time. In fact, the major listings will show up on our next show. These are just, to let you know what we talked about and where to find them. And always go to the Facebook page because we have longer reviews there and more information and that's all the stuff going on here. This was so good. Don't forget to pick up your performing arts inside of the cultural heartbeat of New York City. Our next show, September 30th.